Hello, folks. Welcome to Dangerous Ideas. I'm Lee Camp, and we got a big show for you. The Western Imperial Alliance seems to be collapsing. You know, no one has done more for Donald, more for the destruction of the Western Empire, of the U.S. Empire, than Donald Trump. So, I feel like I've been kind of critical in the past, but now huge fan. Huge fan. He is totally shredding the U.S. empire. I'm going to get to that. I'm going to get to more on Israel, more on Iran, more on ICE, and all of that coming up right now. So click thumbs up, click subscribe, click share, leave a comment. Let's do it. Thanks to 11th Hour for supporting the show there in the Super Chats. Super Chats are not frowned upon here on this show. All right, let's get it going, though. This was kind of, it did not get loads of coverage. I mean, there has been a lot of coverage of how there is now a rift going on between Donald Trump and the Prime Minister of Canada. The Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney. Sorry, I forgot his first name for a minute. Wanted to say Bartholomew, but no, it's Mark. Mark Carney there's been some mainstream media coverage of that, but not a lot about, not enough about his remarks at Davos, where he really said that basically the Western Imperial Alliance is going down the toilet. Canadian, this is from Ben Norton. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney has garnered some attention for his speech he delivered 2026 Davos. He condemned Donald Trump's threats and announced that Canada will fundamentally shift our strategic posture and diversify away from the United States. Carney took a high-profile trip to China as well to try to mend relations. You have Canada leaning towards China, which is the preeminent world's power. He was the first Canadian leader to visit since 2017. Carney said foreign relations must shift in a new world order. And don't worry if you're thinking, what is Lee doing? Carney is a fucking banker. He's the head of the Imperial elite as well as Donald. He's one of the many of the higher ups of the Imperial elite. Yes, I know. We're getting to all that. Just relax. Just keep your pants on your head. I assume if you're a fan of this show, then your pants are on your head. But many observers, to continue from Norton, have overlooked the most revealing admission that Carney made in this speech, which exposed the blatant hypocrisy of Western imperialism. The Canadian Prime Minister acknowledged that the so-called rules-based international order, you've heard a lot about that, right? That's been the ongoing propaganda from the U.S., is we need to follow the rules-based order. And they use that for any, variety of attacks on other countries, attacks on Iran, attacks on Syria, attacks on Yemen, whatever. We need to follow the rules-based order. Oh, yeah, to condemn Russia for the proxy war in Ukraine. It's because they're not following the rules-based order. Of course, the U.S. has never fucking followed any rule that didn't facilitate its own imperialism. Anyway, here's a quote from Carney's speech. He said, "We knew the story of the international rules-based order was partially false, that the strongest would exempt themselves when convenient, that trade rules were enforced asymmetrically, and we knew that international law applied with varying rigor depending on the identity of the accused or the victim. This fiction was useful, and American hegemony in particular helped provide public goods, open sea lanes, a stable financial system, collective security, and support for frameworks for resolving disputes. So we placed the sign in the window, we participated in the rituals, and we largely avoided calling out the gaps between rhetoric and reality. This bargain no longer works. Let me be direct. We are in the midst of a rupture, not a transition." Basically, and Norton will get more into this in a moment, but basically, Canada and Europe are being added to the list of the exploited nations by the exploiter, by the pillager, by the raper of the natural resources, the United States. And so it used to be that the U.S. worked with Europe and with Canada and with Australia, etc., to screw and pillage as much of the world as they could. Now, there's a shift going on where the U.S. says, you know what? We also view you guys as the people to be exploited, to be pillaged. That is what's happening right now, thanks to Donald Trump. Ben Norton continues, Carney was admitting that what he called Western middle powers, such as Canada or European countries, willingly went along with U.S. hegemony and supported the U.S.-led imperialist system, which is predicated on the systematic subjugation and exploitation of global South countries in the periphery. That means off to the side, kids. Look at me with my vocabulary. Yeah, I know the words. Because these Western middle powers also benefited from this pillage of the global South. And I brought it to you a few weeks ago. There's been analysis done on the amount of wealth that has been taken, stolen, pillaged, sucked out of the global South. And it's like, I want to say it was like $200 trillion. It was the most insane amount of wealth you could ever imagine has been transferred. Of course, some of it's done in resources, some of it's done in manpower. Some of it was done by literally kidnapping people in Africa and deciding they were property. So in all those ways, the global South was extracted into the hands of the global North, but also, if you look more specifically, into the top 10% of that global North. So a tiny, tiny number of individuals. Norton continues, Carney emphasized this fiction was useful, quote unquote, for Western imperialist countries. They benefited from imperialism as the U.S. hegemon's junior partners in crime. Basically, Canada and Europe and, Australia, New Zealand were the, and when I say Europe, I mean UK as well. But, and of course, Israel's got to be thrown into this list. They were the junior partners. They were like in the mob, they were the underlings. The underlings get rich too. They don't get as rich as the mob boss, but they get rich too. Carney, but lest we forget, Mark Carney got his start working at Wall Street, at the Wall Street mega bank Goldman Sachs, before going on to lead the central banks of both Canada and England. So you do need to remember that Carney is the global elite. He literally ran the Bank of England, literally ran the Bank of Canada, literally came from Goldman Sachs. You can't get more, you almost can't get more elite and rich and ruling elite than the resume of Mark Carney. However, there is right now a major rupture going on in the ruling elite between the Trumpians and the kind of non-Trumpians. Chris Hedges calls it the corporatists versus the oligarchs. I think that's a little misleading because there's a lot of corporatists that are oligarchs, but so I don't generally define it that way, but it's the same idea. The article continues, now that the U.S. empire has turned against these Western imperialist middle powers that it previously called its quote-unquote allies, and now that they are getting just a glimpse of what it feels like to be on the receiving end of what they have been doing to the global South for centuries, they are ostensibly turning against the exploitative system that they had helped to sustain for so long. And something else needs to be said is they're not like fully turning against it. You're hearing rumblings like them standing up against the stealing of Greenland, stealing of part of Denmark. You're hearing these rumblings where they're like, wait a second, I thought we were allies. I thought we don't turn against each other. I thought you don't extract us. But they're starting to realize that the U.S. ruling elite are more than willing to turn and extract out of Europe, out of Canada, if it facilitates U.S. hegemony and if it facilitates a kind of longer U.S. ruling hegemony, ownership of the world. We're watching that end, and I'm going to get more into the collapsing dollar in a moment as well. We're watching U.S. hegemony, U.S. dollar hegemony. They're both waning. They're both collapsing. And you're seeing the U.S. doing whatever it can to try and maintain that control, maintain some of that wealth and that quote unquote privilege. But Ben Norton would like to remind everybody of Canada's history, as if we how quickly we forget. Canada assisted the genocide of Gaza by sending weapons to Israel. Canada helped NATO wage war on Libya in 2011, destroying its central government. Canada has been a key part of colonial military occupations of Haiti and has supported U.S.-led coups across the global South. Carney himself was governor of the Bank of England in 2019 during the Trump administration's coup attempt in Venezuela, and he illegally froze, i.e. stole, billions of dollars worth of gold belonging to the Venezuelan government. Canada and other Western middle powers, quote unquote, supported the U.S.-led imperialist system as long as it benefited them. They were fine with the U.S.-sponsored colonization of Palestinian land. But Trump's flagrant attempt to colonize Greenland is a bridge too far for them. Now that imperialist system no longer benefits these middle powers, they suddenly pretend to be acting in a principled way. And it really, they would quickly turn back around if it seemed to be in their benefit. But the way Trump is behaving towards them, it is not in their benefit, economically or otherwise, to keep facilitating this world order in this way. So you're hearing more and more of these rumblings, and Mark Carney is probably the most kind of clarified it in the best way in an actual speech. But you've heard it from France. You've heard a little bit, obviously, some from Denmark. You've heard it from some of these countries that, it turns out being America's underling is no longer very good for us. Norton concludes it would be objectively good for the majority of the world population, which is in the global South, if the Western Imperial Alliance broke apart. But it is hard to take Carney's rhetoric about a new world order seriously, given Canada's track record. So we'll see where this goes from here. But this is certainly unprecedented in recent years for the underlings, the vassal states, the lower level mob bosses to turn against, even slightly turn against, the ruling mob boss of Donald Trump and the United States. But they also see the writing on the wall, I think, that the U.S. is a waning empire, a failing empire, and Donald Trump is making it go faster and faster. And for that, I love the man. I got it. Look, no one's done it better than Donald Trump. Fucking set fire to the U.S. empire. Trump also rescinded Carney's invitation to the Board of Peace at Davos. Trump's Board of Peace that is supposed to take over Gaza. But really, if you look at the charter of the Board of Peace, it doesn't even say the word Gaza. So it's really about replacing the UN with Trump having godlike powers so that he can basically be the head of what he views as the new UN, even after he's no longer president. He kind of wants to see if he can make himself world king, I think, is where this is headed. Anyway, he pulled Carney's invitation to the Board of Peace. And we're just seeing the collapsing of the U.S. empire, the collapsing of Western Imperial Alliance, and it's having impacts on the U.S. dollar. But really, these things are it's one feeding the other, right? As the U.S. dollar declines, the underlings in the Western Imperial Alliance realize they're the rats that realize they got to get the hell off the ship in some regard. But also it goes the reverse, right? The U.S. dollar starts failing or continues to fail, continues to go downward because people are realizing the U.S. is less powerful. Their allies, the U.S. allies, are backing away. I want to start, speaking of how I'm now a huge Donald Trump fan because he's setting fire to the U.S. empire, I want to start a rumor, a talking point that secretly Trump is like an awesome leftist who knew in order to really set fire to the U.S. empire, in order to just shred all our alliances, he needed to pretend to be a right-wing fascist. And that's what's really going on here. I want to see how many MAGA people we can get to believe that. I want to see if we can get QAnon in on this. Come on, QAnon. You know it. Trump is a leftist plant to shred the U.S. empire, and it is going great. I've never seen it go better. But as I was saying, this story is from, is this today? Yeah, literally today. U.S. dollar sinks to its lowest level in 4 years. This is from The Guardian. The U.S. dollar has fallen to its lowest level in 4 years after Donald Trump brushed off concerns over the currency's fall, sending investors fleeing to traditional That's actually how it's spelled. I know you guys listen to the podcast can't see this, but it has sent people fleeing to. There's a lot of G's in it. I don't know. I think I'm pronouncing it right. It's 6 H's, 7 G's, a couple of Q's. Yeah. But yes, they send them fleeing to traditional havens, including gold and the Swiss franc. The dollar dropped by 1.3%, then slipped by a further 0.2%. And Trump said, I think it's great. He said, I think the value of the dollar, because he lives in a fantasy land. He lives in a wonderful fantasy land where whatever's going on in his dementia-addled brain is just like reality. So he thinks it's great. He thinks everything's awesome. Here is a chart of the dollar going down. Now, it has not reached the low levels that it was in 2021, but it's getting there. It's getting close. And in terms of this, and you know, I'm not going to go through it all, but you guys know about BRICS. You know the world is de-dollarizing. You know about the petrodollar and obviously as fewer and fewer countries pump all their oil in dollars, it is decreasing the power of the U.S. dollar. It's part of the reason Trump kidnapped Maduro and is trying to take over the Venezuelan oil, is to have all that oil pumped in dollars, which will then prop up the petrodollar, which then makes the U.S. dollars the global reserve currency, a more solid position. But we're seeing, you know, China is now the world's biggest economy, and we're seeing the de-dollarization of the world, but it is a slow process. And just today, Peter Schiff, who's a well-known Wall Street investor and big financial player, he was on Fox News saying that the dollar is collapsing. And Afshin Rattansi, who hosts Going Underground, I've had him on this show as well. He had on Peter Schiff a couple of years ago. This is during the Biden administration, but not long ago. And he asked an interesting question. And I want to hear some of this about why de-dollarization is taking a while, why BRICS isn't ascending quicker.
Peter, you were talking about why the policies of the Biden administration have damaged the faith in the dollar. I suppose to that, I should ask you why it's been so slow. I mean, some could criticize the BRICS agreements about not acting faster in a time when the United States was trying to sanction so much of the world. Why does it take so long for China to unwind its bond investments? And why does it take so long for other countries to unwind it? And is that because actually the dollar is still pretty useful, even in the short to medium term?
Yeah, I mean, the dollar is still being used to settle a lot of global transactions. So I'm sure the Chinese are using the dollar, but they are gradually weaning themselves off of the dollar. That's why, if you look at their holdings of U.S. Treasuries, they've actually gone down a bit over the years.
But not much.
Despite the fact that they've issued a tremendous...
Not that much, despite the rhetoric.
Yeah, but... Right. But if you look at all the new treasuries that we've issued over the years, the fact that the Chinese haven't bought any of them is a big deal, because they used to be a main buyer of these assets. And so instead of buying more treasuries, they've bought more gold and who knows what else. So if you look at U.S. dollar debt as a percentage of all the reserves that the Chinese own, the treasuries are a much smaller percentage of their total reserves than they once were. especially if you consider the appreciation of gold, right? So obviously they're buying gold, and the gold that they own is a lot more valuable than it was. But I would guess that the reason that they're not moving more dramatically is because they probably don't want to cause a crash, like the dollar to implode, the treasury market to implode, because they are trying to sell. And so they obviously want to get a decent price. So I think they're happy to slowly bleed it off to try to get a good price. And I think that's one of the reasons, too, that they have really shortened the maturity of their treasury portfolio. So the Chinese are not holding on to a lot of long-term treasuries that they actually have to sell. They have a lot more short-term treasuries that they can just let mature. And
so you get the point as to, China, much of the world is still still invested in the dollar, and so it's not like everyone just wants to get rid of dollars immediately. But it is happening. We're seeing the dollar go down. We're seeing the amount of the U.S. dollars as the global reserve currency decreases every year. I think it's gone from over 60% to now over 40% in the past decade or something. And this is the de-dollarization of the world. And it's hilariously, Trump is trying to stop that from happening, but because he can't help himself from trying to, take over the world, steal everything, steal Greenland, steal Venezuela and everything else, it makes the dollar look really shifty, scary, unstable. And so you have a lot of people leaving the dollar, like that Guardian article from today. Nicola in the chat asked an interesting question, said, I thought the petrodollar deal was already over. I covered when Saudi Arabia did not re-sign the petrodollar deal, but that does not mean the petrodollar is is over. That does not mean the petrodollar is over. There doesn't necessarily need to be an exact deal for Saudi Arabia and OPEC to continue to sell most or all of their oil, not all, but most of their oil in dollars. So that continues whether there's a deal on paper or not. And petrodollar is still very important. Most oil in this world is still sold in dollars. Also, you've seen Trump frantically trying to make sure that clean energy stops its rise, because as clean energy rises, petroleum, which is the petro part of the petrodollar, pumps less and less. It's less and less important. And if we got to the point that we were heavily using green energy in this world, petroleum would be way down, and the petrodollar would have no significance. So Trump is trying to crush all green incentives, all green energy. They're trying to put sanctions on the batteries that are required for green energy. All those things they're trying to stop. And anyway, this is an important story. Watch this space, as the kids say, and the adults who are trying to look cool like they're the kids. Watch this space. The space of Western imperial alliances collapsing could be very, very important. While we're on the slight change of topic, but we're still on the topic of oil, Mexico has now cut off their oil to Cuba. Cuba is very thanks to the U.S. economic war on Cuba that's gone on for generations. Cuba is very dependent on oil from essentially two places, Venezuela and Mexico. Venezuela, the oil from Venezuela to Cuba has been cut off because of Trump kidnapping their president and stealing their oil tankers. And now you have Claudia Sheinbaum, who has largely been pretty good as a leader of Mexico. Claudia Sheinbaum was shutting off the oil supply from Mexico as well. She claimed in a press conference that so some are saying it's temporary. She claimed in a press conference that it's a sovereign decision and does not have to do with pressure from the U.S. I think that sounds like a lot of bullshit. Mexico supplied 44% of Cuban oil imports. Venezuela exported 33% until last month when the U.S. cut it off. So this is all spelling very bad things for Cuba. And as we know, and Trump and Marco Rubio are running around saying Cuba will collapse soon. As we know, the U.S. has wanted to crush Cuba ever since their revolution back in the 50s. I mean, they have hated that Cuba was able to throw off their capitalist chains. They hated that Cuba acted as the threat of the good example, showing that even without capitalism, you could have very high levels of healthcare, very high levels of employment. I mean, Cuba has free healthcare. They have guaranteed employment for anyone who wants it. They have guaranteed housing. You know, all these wonderful things that if Americans knew that it was possible, you'd have Americans being like, wait a second, I thought we were the richest country in the world. You're telling me they get housing, we don't get housing? You're telling me, this is how every American talks. You're telling me, for those of you in other countries, this is every person in the United States. You're telling me that I get healthcare, we don't get healthcare. Perfect impersonation. I grew up in Richmond, Virginia, so I did grow up with a couple of those people. Richmond's not the deep South, but it was the capital of the Confederacy. So, you know, we definitely got some Southern. We all need to protest against the way the U.S. treats Cuba. It's horrific. I'll keep bringing you updates on Cuba. I hope that the people of Cuba can come together and get through this and hang in there as the U.S. tries to coup them, collapse them, destroy them. I've been to Cuba, wonderful people, wonderful society, and, you know, just most of them, the vast majority of Cubans understand. They may not always love their leader. I mean, I'd be surprised if any country has 100% of everyone loves their leader, but most of them, the vast majority of Cubans understand that they're still in a revolution, fighting a revolutionary battle against the global capitalist system. And that ain't easy. You're going up against one of the strongest forces the world has ever seen. So it shouldn't be surprising when it's hard. And anyway, I hope they can continue to fight. All right. I'm going to move over to some topics about ice. We're going to add some ice to this drink. Yeah, no one has ever come up with any ice puns connected to ice agents, have they? I wonder what are other people in other countries having trouble figuring out what the fuck ice is. They're like, wait, the what? The who? But right, real quick before I get to that, I'll be mentioning this again in a moment. I have a new column out at my Substack. Title of it is "Reforming ICE and the Police State is like punching waves." But there's one answer. It's free to read. You don't even have to log in to read it. You could just go there and read it. realleecamp.substack.com. And I hope you will support my show by joining up over there. And I would support my show either at Substack, or you could also do patreon.com/leecamp. A beer a month, man, is what I'm asking for. A beer a month. If you think this show is worth a beer a month, like if I were to come to your town once a month, would you buy me a beer? That's the question. Now, if your answer is yes, if your answer is no, then fine, fuck you. But if your answer is yes, what if I was not able to come to everyone's town and you just bought me the beer anyway? That's what this is doing. realleecamp.substack.com or patreon.com/leecamp. Or if you want to be part of, I am not an alcoholic. I am a problem solver is what it is. Okay. I do not have a drinking problem. I got a drinking solution. I'm also the first person to say that. But I was going to say, and if you want to be part of like an online community, that's my locals page, leecamp.net. You could join up over there. You can post your own stuff and join up over there. And you're also supporting the show. Any of those three ways all support the show and would be amazing. But before I get to that, let's just show this video of ICE agents trying to break into the Ecuadorian consulate in Minneapolis, which is, consulates and embassies are sovereign land of that country. the U.S. government is not supposed to be able to enter these facilities. And for those of you listening to the podcast, the man in the consulate is running towards the door to keep out ICE.
This is the customer. Relax. Okay, relax. I cannot enter. If you touch me, I will grab you. If you touch me, I will grab you. Okay. Okay. You can let. Okay, but I'm sorry. Okay. You can let. All right, take over. You cannot enter. This is the consulate. This is the foreign government consulate. You can.
So I know it's hard to hear, but he's telling the ICE agent, you cannot enter here. This is another government. This is Ecuadorian consulate. This is land of another government. You have no right to enter here. And the guy said, if you touch me, it sounded like if you touch me, I have a gun, but I can't be certain that's what he said. It certainly sounded like it, which would not surprise me that ICE is threatening to kill people if you touch them, which is insane and is Gestapo and is brown shirts and is all of those things. If you touch me, I'll murder you. But anyway, that's the Ecuadorian consulate that they're now trying to break into. And this is just ICE going on across the country. ICE is they are the brown shirts. They are basically Trump wanted a federal army, because the problem was state police they often have other people telling them what to do. Like Trump can't so easily just tell the cops in Los Angeles to do something, whereas he can tell ICE to do whatever the fuck he wants. So basically he was looking for a army, and at first he tried the National Guard, and that wasn't going as well as he thought, because National Guard won't arrest people generally. They might have a few times, but they're generally not supposed to. Also, National Guard is only supposed to go to a state if they're invited by the governor, if they're asked by the governor. Now, of course, Trump sent them to some states without that. But with ICE, he can do whatever he wants with them. He can send them as his personal army, which is what's been happening across this country. And so I've talked, we've covered ICE plenty in the past couple weeks, but I haven't really covered the corporations that are making ICE possible, making it possible for ICE agents to destroy your rights, arrest people, black bag people, present fascism across this country. So there's a great chart of the corporations that are kind of most involved in the ICE deportation industrial complex. And I really think we need to start talking about it beyond just deportation, because a lot of what ICE is doing is not just deportation, right? They killed Renee Good, they killed Alex Preddy, and neither of them were being deported. So a lot of what ICE is doing is not just deportation. But here's the chart. For those of you listening to the podcast, at the top, you got Jeff Bezos, Amazon Web Services, ICE and its parent agency, the Department of Homeland Security, rely heavily on AWS, Amazon, to provide cloud storage that allows for their processing. Jeff Bezos has also donated, not only has he donated a lot to Trump and to Trump's inauguration, they donated $1 million, but some of those tech bros like Zuckerberg and stuff threw in $1 million to his inauguration to kiss. It was basically a kissing of the ring. It was a kissing of the ring, licking of the ass. And they all did that. All those tech bros, the Altmans, Elon Musk, of course, but all the others. However, Bezos, along with Musk and Peter Thiel and some others, have gone above and beyond. Bezos is the funder and producer of the new Melania documentary. Amazon spent, it was at $45 or $75 million or something on the Melania documentary. So Amazon and Bezos are helping to create the propaganda around Trump in order to facilitate his regime. So Bezos is not he's not just a here's your $1 million, don't break up our company kind of guy. He's a all-in kind of guy for Trump. Then you got Peter Thiel and Palantir. I actually have a video just up right now today on. If you go to, it's a segment from Unredacted Tonight. We just put up the separate segment, and you can go check it out at leecamp.com/unredacted, and it's on my YouTube. But about what a lunatic Peter Thiel is. But Peter Thiel, the heads and founders of Palantir, along with Alex Karp, another lunatic. But Palantir is a surveillance tech firm. They're the corporate backbone of ICE's immigrant surveillance and disappearance apparatus. So without Palantir, you probably wouldn't have the data necessary to do all of these deportations and black baggings. You have Bank of America recently reopened its relationship with the private prison company CoreCivic after 6 years, providing the financial capital for CoreCivic's immigration detention network. You, of course, have Elon Musk, the mega mogul and founder of Doge, has repeatedly boosted, founders, you don't have founders of government departments, but whatever the fuck, it doesn't matter. Boosted social media posts by Donald Trump attacking immigrants while promoting the racist Great Replacement theory. And he's also facilitating Trump's regime in just myriad ways. So, Elon Musk donated like almost $300 million to Donald Trump's campaign and party and everything else. You also have Antonio Gracias, the Musk ally and billionaire venture capitalist, led Doge's anti-immigration task force, weaponizing Social Security to force immigrants to self-deport while also dismantling the agency. So there's just a few of the corporations that are heavily involved in this this ICE takeover. Thank you so much, Citizen Pendejo, for supporting the show. And he says he'd buy me a beer. Hell yeah. Real beer, real tacos. I like it. I like it. I'll take it. I'll take you. If you want to send a taco in the mail, I'll take it. But yeah, I thought it was important to bring you guys some of the corporations that are allowing ICE to operate. There are many more. I think that not all of them are like as large, overarching. Like you have plenty of small ones. I mean, the hotels that ICE generally make, get their deals to stay in whatever city. A bunch of people were just arrested in New York City for occupying the hotel where ICE, I think it was 65 people were arrested for occupying the hotel where the ICE agents were staying in New York City. I assume there's hotel chains that have deals with ICE. Like there are smaller ones, but these are some of the biggest ones. And good for those people occupying the hotel in New York City, because it's like, they end up getting arrested. I don't think they should be arrested because standing in a hotel lobby should not be illegal. And those type of, I've always said the type of protests that matter are the ones that interrupt business as usual, that slow things down. Well, if the ICE agents are having trouble sleeping, if they're having trouble getting out of their hotel because they don't want to walk through that mob of people that hates them, if they're having trouble getting back to their hotel, all those things, perfect, great, make their lives more difficult, and it's a form of civil disobedience. I think that's the way it should be. So that's all I'll do on ICE right now. But like I said, I also have a Substack column on a similar topic. It's not the same stuff. So you should go check it out because you'll get new information over there. Titled "Reforming ICE in the Police State is like punching waves, but there is one answer." And I think you'll enjoy it. Go check it out. Go share it. Even if you hate it, even if you get over there and you're like, fuck, this is shit. Share it anyway, okay? Because you know what? Share it with your enemies. How about that? If you like it, share it with your friends. If you hate it, and it's the worst thing you've ever read, send it to everyone you hate. Because then some of them are going to accidentally read it, and then that terribleness will be in their heads. So you win either way. Like there's no reason to not go and get this. Either as something important you're sharing with your friends and family, or as something unimportant that you're infecting your enemies with. Either way, you win. You see how that works? That's at realleakcam.substack.com. I think I did a pretty good job of selling that. Why everyone needs to go do that. You don't even have to, by the way, you can subscribe for free, but you don't even have to log in to go read that over there. I would love for you to buy me a beer. Did I mention that? Join up for $8 a month. But let's keep going here. I want to switch angles to surveillance of all of us. Have you ever noticed that you talk about something one day and then you get an ad for it on your phone, on your Facebook, on your Instagram, on your whatever? You see an ad for the thing that you didn't type in anywhere, you didn't email, you just happen to be talking about it in your living room. Has that ever happened to you? And you feel paranoid by, like you have a conversation with someone about how Uggs are ugly. And no, for everybody who has Uggs out there, I still love you, okay? I still love you. I mean, it is in the word. Like, it is, it's like right there. It's Uggs are ugly. But you ever had a conversation about Uggs and the next day you literally see an ad for Uggs and you've never seen an ad for Uggs in your life or recently, and you're like, what? Why? Like, are they really listening to us? And then you sound crazy because you start telling your friends, you're like, it's giving me ads for the things I talked about. Is my phone really listening to like our conversations? Well, and you probably sounded crazy, and you probably had friends who thought you were crazy. You probably had those friends and family who were like, dude, you need to take a warm bath and just like chill out, eat a banana or some warm milk or whatever the comfort food is, some fried okra. I don't know. I'm just listing foods. And they think you're loony. But Google has now paid out $68 million to settle claims that, guess what? It was spying on you to give you ads. This is not a theory now. Google agreed to pay $68 million to settle claims its voice assistant illegally spied on users to, among other things, serve them advertisements. And this is when you were talking around your phone or around your laptop without saying, hey, Google, or whatever the expression is that's supposed to activate the voice activate, hey, Gemini, I don't know what it is, but hey, Alexa, hey, Siri. This is without saying any of those things. It was listening to you. Google did not admit wrongdoing because that was part of the deal. They were like, we'll pay $68 million as long as we don't have to say we did it. But they had a settlement of a class action case, which accused the firm of unlawful and intentional interception and recording of individuals' confidential communications without their consent and subsequent unauthorized disclosure of those communications to third parties. The suit further claimed that information gleaned from these recordings was wrongly transmitted to third parties for targeted advertising and for other purposes. And they are not the first. In 2021, and I think I covered this back when it happened, Apple agreed to pay $95 million to settle claims its voice assistant, Siri, had recorded their conversations without a prompt from users. Now, I will say there is supposedly a way to turn these things off. I have never used, I have an iPhone, unfortunately, but I have never used Siri. But you have to go through many steps to try to not just have Siri off, but have Siri not listening to everything you're saying. And I have gone through all those steps and still occasionally see an ad where I'm like, I literally was just talking about that. But I know that like when it comes to, a lot of people don't understand how insidious consumerism is, advertising, the manipulation of advertising is. So some people just view it as funny. Like I talked about mac and cheese yesterday, and here's a recipe for a mac and cheese that it's promoting to me. They just find it funny. But any of these tools, any of this technology, any type of surveillance, it will ultimately be used, even if not now, although probably now, but it will ultimately be used by the ruling elite for horrible purposes, as long as that ability is there. So Do you really right now think that Trump, and obviously it's not him sitting at a computer, Trump has literally never typed anything. He doesn't know how the keyboards work. He just yells at someone. And that may be why all of his tweets and everything are in all caps, is because he's like, assistant man, tweet this. And so the guy's like, all caps. But anyway, Trump and all of his minions, do you really believe that they would never use this capability of listening to you through your phone to collect hordes of data about what you're talking about, and one day have the ability and the algorithm and the AI and everything else to crunch all that data and literally find out who is saying things that could mean that they potentially will be a protester or an activist or something like that? And I don't mean people actively planning things. I don't mean people sitting there being like, all right, here's what we're going to do. See, we're going to put on helmets. We're going to get the bear mace and we're going to take the Capitol. I don't even mean that. I mean, people say just like, it's like, oh, it's interesting. He likes that book. He talks about that. Oh, he quoted Marx. Oh, he quoted this. Oh, he's been talking a lot about Giannis Varoufakis. Like crunching all that data and figuring out who are the activists that know enough to be dangerous to the ruling elite. I don't think we're very far from that at all. I'd be surprised if people think we're that far away from that, then I would love to live in your blissful naivete. Speaking of our media and the control of said media, control of the platforms, quasi moving on, although I've had pretty good segues, pretty solid segues. That's the thing. If your segues are nice, then you don't even know you've moved on to a new topic. You just slide into it. You just slide into it. Like it's like a slip and slide. You don't even realize that you're 3 yards down. Slip and slide ended. Then you went through one guy's yard because it was just kind of muddy. And then you ended up running into the porch of the third yard. Like if you have the segues properly, you don't even notice that you went that far. Chase, I think, is the name in the chat, is asking if I mentioned that Michael Parenti died. Yes, we talked about that for a while on the last live stream. That is sad. Although he was 92, so I feel like if you're 92 and you want to go, people should let you go. Like, I do feel that. But D Nord has thrown me 2 beers. Well, to $10 beers. That's kind of a little nicer. I was just looking for $8 beers, but 2 $10 beers ain't bad. Thank you, D Nord. And Citizen Pendeo threw in some more. Thank you. Really appreciate you guys supporting the show. But what I was getting to, now that I've ruined my segue, now that I fucked up the slip and slide and you careened into a wall, speaking of the platforms, with TikTok has now been taken over, right? It is being heavily censored. Now, here's the thing. Some people were really afraid of this day. TikTok's being taken over. I was banned from TikTok 2 years ago. Let me do the calculations. 2 years ago, over 2 years ago, after only using it for about 2 months. And I was talking a lot about Gaza, right? The Gaza genocide had just started happening. The one after October 7th, the fast-forwarded genocide had just started happening. So I was talking a lot about that. And I was banned quickly for talking about Gaza. So to me, TikTok has been, and that was under Biden. To me, TikTok has been censored for a while. Other people are like shocked that TikTok is now being censored. But that being said, here is the TikTok's new CEO admitting to just how heavily they are censoring any criticism of Israel or those who support the genocide. They're censoring the criticism of those who support the genocide.
We made a change to designate the use of the term Zionist as a proxy for a protected attribute as hate speech. So if somebody were to use Zionist, of course you can use it in the sense of you're a proud Zionist. But if you're using it in the context of degrading somebody, calling somebody a Zionist as a dirty name, then that gets designated as hate speech.
Did you catch that? just criticizing someone for being a Zionist is hate speech on TikTok. Zionist, for those of you who need it clarified yet again, means the support of Israel and the support of Israel's policies, which are genocidal, which are apartheid state, which are an ethno state, all of those things, which are ethnic cleansing. Criticizing that ideology is now considered hate speech on TikTok. Like you cannot criticize genocide on TikTok. Also, for those of you who need a reminder, Zionist does not equal Jewish. I am Jewish. I am anti-Zionist. Zionist, there are millions of Christian Zionists across America and around the world. There are more Christian Zionists in the United States than there are Jews in the world. It is not... Israel wants you to conflate it with Judaism, but it does not mean Judaism. And it is useful to minimize, crush, censor, and ban those who criticize Israel. And here he is admitting that that's exactly what they now do on TikTok. And it is one of the few ideologies where they call it hate speech, right? You if you criticize someone for being a capitalist, like if you were to use capitalist as an insult slang, they argue for, corporations help us have a wonderful life, and you just yelled at them, screw you, capitalist. That's not considered hate speech. But if you said the same about a Zionist, that is interesting. If you were to say the same about Marxist or communist or any ist, it doesn't count as hate speech except for Zionist.
To be moderated against. Over the course of 2024, we tripled the amount of accounts that we were banning for hateful activity. We also have, I think, over 24 Jewish organizations that are constantly feeding us intelligence and information when they spot violative trends.
So when they say Jewish organizations, they mean almost exclusively these organizations whose goal is to crush anyone who criticizes Israel. And it really is disgusting to say those are just Jewish organizations. No, those are pro-Israel, pro-genocide organizations. And we should be really clear about that. There are plenty of Jewish organizations that are not running around saying this genocide is wonderful. And those are the ones that need supporting. But instead, he's saying TikTok has these pro-genocide groups that are informing them, that are ratting out anyone who dare criticize Israel.
They spot violative trends. There is no finish line. There's no finish line to moderating hate speech, identifying hateful trends, trying to keep the platform safe. There's no such thing as an end game.
Try to keep the platform safe for genocide. Safe for pro-genocide. I mean, it really is. It's the most inverted moral universe you can fucking fathom. We now live in a place where you can openly get on a stage and talk about how not only do you support genocide, but you are making the world safe for those who commit genocide. And that is fine. And that is supported. And that is funded. And that is the richest and the richest ruling elite are parts of that group. Really remarkably repulsive stuff. Just so sickening. And it also does, I mean, to give you the slight positive of this, it reeks of desperation. If you are needing to play whack-a-mole against anyone online who dare criticizes your genocide, then you're kind of in a bad place. You kind of have the only reason you'd have to do that is if you are losing the propaganda game. If what you're selling is easy to like, easy to get behind, and is morally justifiable, then you don't need to whack everyone who dares criticize it, because they're up against a brick wall. They've got to tell you to appreciate something that's immoral and disgusting and repulsive. But if you're trying to defend the wrong, the disgusting, the revolting, the immoral, the unethical, then that is when you have to create these devices, these systems to shut down anyone who criticizes you and those horrific beliefs that you have. On that same topic, you know, guys know that Barry Weiss took over at CBS News. She is a genocide lover. She's actually literally gotten Palestinian journalists or poets or academics killed. One of the, because this is prior to becoming head of CBS News. She has called them out online, which Israel, after she did that, Israel then bombed at least one of their houses, killing that person. I'm sorry, I forget the name at the moment, but and he literally had said before he was assassinated, "If I die, I blame Barry Weiss." So she is now the head of CBS News, and big shocker, she has just announced the new hiring list, and it is full of Zionists. This is from the Substack of the dissident. It's called the307.substack.com, and you can go read the full list there. But, you know, first hire by CBS News was Elliot Ackerman, a veteran of the Marine Corps and CIA Special Operations. And he is a hardline Zionist. Another contributor announced to CBS News is Masih Ali-Anjad, an Iranian journalist in exile and U.S. government asset pushing for war with Iran. So anyway, it's a long list, but you can go check it out of all the Zionists and pro-genociders that Barry Weiss has hired at CBS News. Barry Weiss's goal with the new CBS contributors is clear: to hire Zionists pushing for American backing of Israel and an American war with Iran in order to use the once respected news outlet to manufacture consent for Israel's foreign policy goals. One more story here on Israel before I wrap this up for the day. I will join you tomorrow for Unredacted Tonight. For those of you who don't know, there's a new Unredacted Tonight every Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern, but obviously you can watch it anytime after that. So new episode tomorrow night, and then I will join you Friday for another live stream, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific, but you can watch that anytime as well. But one more update on Israel. Not enough is said about the West Bank, and I'm actually working on a larger segment for Unredacted Tonight about the West Bank because, you know, understandably, with the genocide in Gaza, it kind of sucks up all the oxygen, all the media coverage. If you're going to cover Palestinians, you're going to focus on Gaza. But when the West Bank is being stolen heavily and quickly by Israel. Here's from Al Jazeera. Last year, more than 37,000 Palestinians were displaced over the course of 2025. That's in the West Bank, mostly due to operations carried out in refugee camps. Across the northern governance of the West Bank, OCHA also reports that over 1,800 attacks by Israeli settlers against Palestinians have happened. They caused casualties, damage, or both in 2025. 1,800 attacks. The UN spokesperson further noted that this was the highest annual figure on record by the UN and marks the 9th consecutive annual increase. And for me, it was, I knew that Israeli quote unquote settlers, and I think that is I don't think anyone who understands the issue should call them settlers. We haven't agreed upon a separate term. So we need to come up with one, but it should be land pillagers, land thieves, something like that. Cause settlers sounds almost positive. It sounds like a little Amish family out in the woods, doesn't it? The settlers arrived and they settled things. Settling sounds nice. Oh, things were rough, but then we settled it. So no, these are land thieves. And in the West Bank, it was tough for me to understand. I knew that quote unquote settlers were taking more land in the West Bank, but when you hear that, you kind of think like, I guess the land wasn't occupied. Like if someone lives there, how do you just walk in and steal it? You can't, right? But that's our misunderstanding of what it looks like on the ground and what is going on over there. These land thieves, they come in and they make life a living hell for the people living there, for the Palestinians living in the West Bank. mainly in the rural areas of the West Bank is where it's easiest to do this type of thing. A lot of the Palestinians have like sheep. I don't know why I added an S there. Have sheep. They have, various animals that need to graze, and they can't let their animals graze because these land thieves will claim the animals were on their property. They'll kill them. They'll steal them. They'll call the IDF in and claim, oh, that sheep was on my property. So, that takes away part of their income, part of the way these people are making a living. That's just one thing they do. They will go in the night and destroy olive trees, which can live 1,000 years. So you destroy all the olive trees, then the land becomes less useful for a living, to make a living, to survive. They'll go in and just bring their dogs in to bark and scream and everything. Sometimes they'll literally set houses on fire. So there are the more active moments where they will come in with guns or set buildings on fire or whatever. And these Palestinians who very much want to remain on their land, they've lived in these places for some of them hundreds of years, but even the ones who got there more recently have lived there for 100 years. I mean, they've been there a long time on this land. They had generations of history there. They don't want to leave the place that is their family, that is everything to them. But that being said, it becomes almost impossible. The life is unlivable. Everything, every day they have to wonder whether Israeli land thieves are going to come in and threaten them, and they'll do things like come in and then get in an argument with they'll go onto the Palestinians' land. Palestinians say, "Get off my land," or whatever, and they'll then call the IDF or the Israeli security forces, any of them. And guess which side of that argument they're going to take. And then the IDF or Israeli security show up, and guess what the Israeli land thieves will say? They'll say, "This man assaulted me," or "This man did something to me." And all of a sudden, that Palestinian who was just saying, "Get off my land," is now accused of assaulting an Israeli. And he could be tortured in prison for the rest of his life. Like, you have no idea what's going to happen. There is no authority for them to go to. There's nowhere for them to turn. So you can't blame them for their lives are made a living hell, and eventually they leave. And so that is how you have Israel slowly by relative terms, but in many ways very quickly, taking over the West Bank. They keep moving. We made this village unlivable. We made these people scared. Okay, they moved out. Okay, their kids, they moved their kids out because they wanted the kids not to be in harm's way. Well, now you just have 2 old people left in the house. Well, that should be easy to scare them out of there. That should be easy to take them out. And this is how it works, day in and day out. That is their life. And there's no one coming to help them. It is just horrific land thievery on a daily basis. And that's the West Bank. That's the not horrible area of Palestine. That's the not genocide. It's like, you can't even put words to it. It's so horrifying and immoral and unethical and all of the words. And anyway, here's the UN announcing that there's been more attacks than ever, thousands. You have whatever thousands number of people displaced. That's day to day in the West Bank. All right. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I'll be back tomorrow with Unredacted Tonight. That's 7 p.m. Eastern, or watch it anytime thereafter. It premieres. It is a lot of fun to come to the 7 p.m. premiere, though, 7 p.m. Eastern, because you got the live chat going and all that shit. It is a lot of fun to be at the premiere at 7 p.m. Eastern, but you can also watch it anytime after that. And I will see you Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern, for another episode. These are all podcasts, too. If you got a car ride coming up, you can click play on just the audio version. That's Moment of Clarity on most platforms, except it's called The Lee Camp Show on Spotify because they banned me. And then I also have my other podcast, Censored and Government Secrets. All right. I will see you tomorrow for Unredacted. Keep fighting.